Very glad you're here. None of this could be possible without the Friends of the Library, which is at that table there. Tonight, they're doing a silent auction for two different sort of gifts. And the proceeds go to the library, to the Friends of the Library who support these types of events. Also, we have Amy Perry in the background. Wave, Amy. She's an adult services specialist with the library, as is Miriam Mayer, who's sitting there. They put all this together, and we're so happy to also have our booksellers here, Brave and Kind Books. So yes, know that she's there. We have refreshments in the back as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator and author tonight. Our moderator to your right is Piper Huguley, who made her historical fiction debut in June 2022 with By Her Own Design, a novel of Anne Lowe, fashion designer to the Social Register, who was the Black fashion designer of Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress. She is also the author of Sweet Tea by Hallmark Publishing. She blogs about the history behind her novels and lives in Atlanta with her husband and son. And to our left, the author of the night, the star of the evening, is Diane Marie Brown, and she is a professor at Orange Coast College and a public health professional for the Long Beach Health Department. That's Long Beach, California. She has a BA and an MPH from UCLA and a degree in fiction from USC's Master of Professional Writing program. She grew up in Stockton and now lives in Long Beach, California with her husband, their 4 daughters, and their dog, Brownie. Black Candle Women is her debut novel, and I will say it has been optioned for a TV series, is that correct, or a movie? Which one? TV series. And she was the March 2023 Jenna Bush pick as well. And she was on the Today Show, and it was fabulous. So welcome, Diane Marie Brown. I'm so sorry, you're actually going to need this. Thank you, Carl.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We both appreciate it. I'm honored to have this marvelous opportunity to speak with you, Diane, about your amazing, marvelous book. I guess people who, should we try to prevent spoilers? What do you think? Okay, yeah. Well, there's some people's like, no, we know, we read already. I see that in the head shaking or whatever, but that's you. But you did good though to get the book read before the event. I've always been a fan of these kinds of things, and Charmed and Bewitched and all of this, and to see it present in Black women, strong Black women. Conflicting Black women. Yeah, it's an amazing piece of work that you've done here. So I guess to start us off, I'd like to know more about how it germinated, how it came about, and some of your journey with it.
Sure. Can you all hear me? Okay. And just FYI, with the mics, I'm not going to interrupt her because we have to switch off and on the mic, just in case it's weird, like, why didn't she just jump in? Because I'm waiting, and then I will give a second in between. So yes, this is actually a project I've been working on for a really, really long time. It started as a prompt, an assignment in my writing program, which was just maybe 5 pages long. These women came to me, and I was having a lot of fun with this idea about a family of women who, because of something about them, men died if they fell in love with them, and kind of got this idea. It was a much more sinister idea when I first came about, where they were kind of purposely killing men, and then I was like, maybe this is a little too dark. So then I started thinking about a short story in my writing program, and it became my thesis. And so for that program, your thesis was either, I think, 3 short stories or the first 100 pages of a novel. So I made it into a novel. And then just finished it after my program. And that took about a year to finish it, and then just tried to find an agent and had a tough time. That I say that timing, it's all about timing with some of these things, and so it just wasn't the right time. And so got feedback, worked on it a little more, tried again, and nothing really happened until 2020. I got kind of an interesting opportunity, an open call directly from a publisher, which usually you have to have an agent to get to a publisher, but they were trying to identify more writers, more Black writers, and so this was their way of doing so. And so with that opportunity, I was able to get it published through my house, which is Great In House Books, and so it's been fast and slow at the same time, but just really love this family of women that I started writing about in a class.
My author friends and I call 2020 the crack. They opened the crack and they let a lot of us in.
Yeah, all of that. That's true.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the book. In terms of this, the relationships between these women, where you have the matriarch and her living in the house with, and in that right there already, sort of living in the house with her granddaughters and her great-granddaughter, all of that, the sort of the female synergy of it. So you said it was sinister in terms of when you started it, in terms of, was it sinister because of the magic that they were doing to create the outcomes, or was it more like what it became in terms of the fact that there was this thing out there causing?
So when I first conceived of it, so the Black Candle Woman is about a family of women who are cursed. Anyone with whom they fall in love with dies, and it's something that's been happening to their family for a few generations. But this is bad news for the teenager in the house, because she had no idea, and she brings home a love interest for the first time. So that's when they first have to reckon with it. And we go back in time to learn about the curse's origin from the matriarch, and that takes us back to 1950s New Orleans, and a voodoo sorceress who put the curse in place. And so when I first thought of it, I thought about the women knowing that this happened to them, and kind of they were kind of using that for like vigilante purposes, like finding the worst of the worst men or women, whoever their love interests are, and taking care of it in that way. But I wanted something different for this family once I started learning more about them, and so I wanted them to grapple with, well, having this curse, how do they still find love? How do they rectify that, and will they fight to have love in their life?
I wonder with, there's a particular fondness for older women characters. So, is it Nanagusta?
Nanagusta.
Nanagusta, yeah. She's, I think, my favorite one. And she's mute, which, was that something that occurred to you in terms of thinking about writing her character?
So, yes, so Nanagusta, or Augusta, her family call her Nanagusta. She's nonverbal, and because of a couple of strokes that she had at a point in her life when she was older. And I did that for a couple of reasons, but really I wanted, as the reader, I wanted to really look at what she was dealing with internally, and not be able to jump in and explain herself. It's also kind of symbolic because she carries, all the family, they carry a lot of secrets, but she carries a really big secret. And so that was part of it. And just as we get older, we deal with these health issues. I had my mother for a period of time. Temporarily, she was nonverbal because of some health issues, and but got really creative in how she still communicated what she wanted to get across to us. And so I just kind of wanted to explore that a little.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have the two sisters. So it's not just the motherhoods that are in the book, but also the sisterhoods between Willow and Victoria. Now, I know one of the things you hear a lot, particularly when you have Black female characters, is they have to be portrayed in a certain way or put forward in a certain way so that they'll be likable. And some people, in terms of Victoria, she has this way of being, I guess call it the elder sister syndrome.
Yeah.
Because I'm an elder sister, I know what that is. I recognized it in her. More on the side of caretaking, maybe not knowing when to stop the caretaking for Willow and others in her family or whatever. Have you come across people who had particular thoughts about Victoria and her place in the story?
Yeah, people have thoughts about Victoria. They'll say, she drove me crazy. And I'm like, I know. She drove me crazy too. But I did want to, sometimes you hear about, characters being unlikable or those types of things. But, I want characters that act in a way that maybe we disagree with or that we, as readers, don't like, because that we want to see how other people behave and how they handle issues and challenges that might be much different than the way we would handle it, or the way that a lot of people would handle it. But I wanted there to be that tension. I wanted there to be some of that I don't know, just gut feeling like I don't quite understand what she's doing, but at some point hopefully people realize that her motivations were really out of love. She doesn't maybe do things in the best way, but her motivations are because she loves her family, she wants to protect her family, and she just knows extremes. She operates in extremes. So.
And then we have Willow, who is her younger sister, who we're all, I guess, maybe we're kind of trying to see in terms of the conflict that existed between them over a man, which was something I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, that is like the penultimate sister conflict, I would think, is if they were both interested in the same man, and one of them didn't get him and the other one did, in terms of that. But how did you see her growth happening during the course of the story? Especially with her investment, seemingly with Willow, about who's going to get the power.
Yeah, I think I really liked Willow's growth maybe the most, or her evolvement in the story. So you have these two sisters, and they both, the book, there's a lot in there about voodoo and hoodoo, and that's what the beads are for. A lot about I'm sorry about the mic. With New Orleans, and so hoodoo is more of the spiritual side, the religion, similar to the way that in Catholicism you have Catholic saints that intercede on behalf for humans, and so that's the voodoo side. And then the hoodoo are the tricks and the spells and the foot powders that if you walk over it, something will happen to that person, or if you're trying to get money. A lot of times people conflate the two, or we hear a lot of people don't know about hoodoo. They just what what hoodoo really is. They think that's what voodoo is, but they overlap, but they're different. But in this story, there's a sister who really is more in tune with the voodoo side, and there's another sister who likes the tricks and the spells. So that's Willow. And both of them kind of feel that they are gifted, and but there is only one of them who the family says, okay, you are the one that has this wonderful gift that you've inherited from an ancestor from over a century ago. And but the Willow, who does the tricks and the spells, she really believes that she is the one, but she's calling to following in her sister's footsteps. And so I think the way that she evolves in the story is she really kind of steps out from being this little sister who's dependent upon her older sister, who's her employer, and says, you know, I'm gonna create this life of my own, and I'm gonna operate in my own way. And so I think that's what I really liked seeing about Willow, is she's already a very independent spirit, but she's not quite living that way, even though that's how she feels. So she was finally living the way, operating the way that she felt she should be.
Yeah, that is another source of
Sorry.
Another source of tension is her being her employer. You know, that's like adding another level. That was really, really cool to do that, to increase the friction between them. Yes, I agree in terms of Willow's growth or coming out of that shadow. And it was like she's, you know, I think she's living out loud, but really to have her do it by the end of the book was really a good thing to see. So in terms of some of the aspects of like when you talk about hoodoo and voodoo and all of this, brings me to mind, and I saw in your acknowledgments about Zora Neale Hurston, in terms of Mules and Men, which you should probably be mad at me because my purse is on the floor. It's one of those things. If you've read Mules and Men, knows it's like, and it's like this kind of stuff like you don't know where that came from, but this is like this kind of belief about leave your purse on the floor, all the money will fall out, or, you know. Yeah, she's looking over there. See? That's what I say. In terms of that, so was she one of the ones that you looked to for? You have some very intriguing and particular aspects of spells and stuff. I've been to New Orleans just once, and I do recall like walking the streets and you can see these places. Did you interview people who are part of this, or was it part of your family heritage?
So my family is from Louisiana, and we would visit every summer. We'd go visit my uncle, and he would tour us around the city, and I just have a lot of great memories there. But when it came to learning about hoodoo and voodoo, I learned from books that I came across. I did some research. There's a practitioner named Denise Alvarado who I reached out to her, and so it kind of became one of those things where, I mean, you write historical fiction and there's a lot of research. It was one of those things where I had a question, so I did the research, and then the research gave me more ideas. I took those ideas and then needed more research, and so the research was kind of feeding more ideas. And so the tricks and the spells, those I learned about through my research, but it really came back to a lot of what's out there came back to Zora Neale Hurston's work. We know her as this wonderful writer, but she was an anthropologist. She came down south and notated what she saw and what people were doing and how Black people lived their lives in Louisiana and Florida, and so we know a lot of those beliefs from what she wrote, and other people have since added to it, but I think she was probably most notable of noting all of those things back in the day. So definitely learned a lot from her, and then I just started kind of you read enough, and you can just kind of start making up your own sorts of spells. And so, not that I've tried anything, people always ask me, is this real? Do you try these things? And I'm like, I haven't, and I probably won't, because what if it works? And that's pretty scary, right? So.
Yeah, I admit I was looking in the pages for that. This is the one primary, I guess the most accessible form of hoodoo, primary access of hoodoo has to do with menstrual blood and spaghetti sauce.
Oh.
Yeah, that's in Mules and Men too.
Oh.
How to bind your men to you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with that one, which is. Yeah, sort of gross to think about, but there it is. So you also have the delightful young woman, Nikki, who is Victoria's daughter in the book as well. And what did your own time being a mother give you access to an insight into developing her character and in terms of making her really the one who's kicking off the inciting incidents of the story in terms of, oh my gosh, she's having an attachment, she's developing an attachment to someone. How do we let her into what our family history, legacy, curse is?
Yeah, I definitely would say that my daughters influenced my characterization of Nikki. So yes, I have 4 daughters, and I can't believe they're all like grown up now. But my youngest, she is we have a lot in common, but I'm just like a total, I don't know if it's because of my age or how I grew up, but I'm like a total rule follower. I think about people, I do what I'm supposed to do. I don't fight back, probably even when I should. And her, she's like, screw this and F that, and like she's like, I don't care about the rules. You do what you want. I'm gonna apologize later, and it's so like I'm like in awe of her. I'm like, that's so liberating. Like I wish I was more like that. And so that just says, if this is a situation put in front of you and this is how you're supposed to respond, and it's like, well, who cares, if that's tradition or that's the way that it's always been done. And so, and I don't even want to call it like rebellious, because it's just, it's maybe me, the way that I have been conditioned, but I really admire that about her, and so that aspect I wanted to really showcase in Nikki.
Which you did very well. And yeah, you did that very well in terms of delineating her character. And I thought gave a good amount of time. She was 17 before Felix came along. I was like, Victoria actually got a little bit of extra time there.
Yeah.
Think about it in terms of that. But then she's so, surprised and everything. But I like her reactions. I like the way in which you portray that, because again, she's the elder sister. She's a little control freak and all of that in terms of that. And the tension having Nikki going to her aunt for that little secret thing that she was trying to get, that was also like really, really very well done. But in the story, you have Madeline coming in, and let's think about what is the connection, right? That the maternal connection between Augusta and the 2 girls. It's Madeline, and she has the drug problem, right? So how did that come into the story in terms of who she was and why she's not in the house with them?
Yeah, so Madeline is a character. She's my redemption character. So I really wanted to think about how people can, people that might have done some not so nice things in their past to their family members, can change and are worth forgiving, and they can be redeemed. And so sometimes people like Madeline, and they ask, why didn't I use her as a character voice, a point of view character, and it's because Madeline, she doesn't buy into any of it. So I didn't think it made sense to hear her perspective from her point of view. She becomes kind of the voice of reason to all the other characters, or she's going to tell it like it is. But I really wanted, in bringing her in late, for her to be witness to see Victoria's path to changing the way that she thinks about their family.
Awesome. Okay, so it's just a marvelous circle of women who come together, who are weathering their conflicts with one another and changing relationships, all of that. It really is a marvelous depiction of their lives and their stories that happen in this book. And then you have some of the men who, when Felix is first there, he's there and he's, seemingly attentive and stuff. But then he had that one little moment when he started to go off into some other space with Nikki that was like a little bit like, okay, well, you better watch out there, Felix, with some of the things that you're, kind of asking her to do. In terms of that, as well as the backstory of, because these women wouldn't exist if they didn't have some male at some point in the lives of these characters. So then you have the male characters occurring. Was there any aspect of developing those male characters in terms of thinking, who are these men going to be who are going to either know or be confronted with their female power? There's always this question in terms of when you have women who are witches or heavy or whatever, there's this question of female power. So did you think about that when you developed the male characters that the women have to encounter in order to give birth to a new generation?
That's a great question. I actually didn't really think about if, because I never really thought about these women sharing their power, their secret with these men, because that kind of changes the dynamic of the relationship. True. Right? Mm-hmm. But that would be interesting, even just with what Willow considers her power, for example. Mm-hmm. If she ever decided to share that, that would be interesting. I did have. There was in a version, my book, when I first had it, it's pretty long now, but it was 120,000 words, which is like really, really long. So there was a lot that I cut out. So there was a relationship, a different person that was a love interest that Victoria cut off at some point because she was getting too close, just because I wanted to examine her actually falling in love and but then getting scared and pulling away. But that got cut. But yeah, I think it is interesting to think about the other characters whom these women fall in love, and what their thoughts would be if they knew the power of these women.
That is an interesting perspective, because now I wonder if that had been in there, would you think people might have been more sympathetic towards her?
Yeah.
But due to trees and all of that, your books have to be a certain length, and also book clubs. The sort of the word is like 300 pages. If you go to 320, 325, 350, okay, but that's tops. The book clubs might not want your book otherwise if it was longer than that. So then some of that stuff with Victoria had to go, unfortunately. Yeah. But tell us what it was like when you got the call from Jenna about the fact that it had been selected for that particular very influential and famous book club.
Yes, that was, I still remember, so I live in Southern California, but I'm from Northern California, this little town called Stockton, which has a very high crime rate. That's what people always say about Stockton, but I'm like, we've got some other redeeming qualities, right? So I was in Stockton visiting my dad, who still lives there, and I was going back and forth with my editor about, the book was, the hard and heavy draft was done at that point. This was last August. And but we were emailing about something else, and at the end she said, oh, by the way, do you have time for a call later today? I have some nice news. And we are, all of our communication is by email. I had talked to her one time by phone. And so I was worried, like, oh, you know, what's it gonna be? Thank goodness she said nice news, or else I would have just been, you know, tearing out my hair like, what, it's done? What, it's over. Because you're already, as a debut, you're already just like second, not everybody, but a lot of other debuts I know, we're second guessing ourselves. We have some imposter syndrome, and it's like, okay, it's gonna get canceled, it's done. But she said nice, so I'm like, okay. So she calls with my agent, and she said, are you sitting down? And I said, yes. And she said, do you have any champagne? And I said, no, but I can get some. And so that's when she said, well, Jenna Bush Hager and the Today Show, they've selected your book as the March selection. And I was like, what? That's crazy. My little book? And so it was very, very surreal. And we were just about to go, and they're like, but wait, there's more. And I'm like, what else could there be? And she's like, well, Jenna is starting a production company, and they would like to option your book. And so I was like, this can't be real. And so then they're like, but you can't tell anybody. You can't tell anybody. You can tell your husband, but you can't tell anybody else. And so that was my big secret that I kept all the way. That was in August. I kept that secret until February 28th. Maybe I told somebody on February 26th. I told a few of my friends, but it's just been incredible to have a. As a debut, it's easy for any book to get kind of lost. There's 25 books coming out every Tuesday, and a lot of work that went on, not just writing it, but the team getting word out, trying to tell people about it, and it's easy to get lost as a debut author. So to be given such a national platform is, it's momentous. Like, I'm just super grateful and appreciative of that, so.
And did you have any input to the marvelous cover? Covers are hard, but it's beautiful. Did you have any input?
Thank you. No, the cover, my publisher said that they were working with an artist in the UK. Her name is Bokiba, and they just said, are there anything from the book, that signs or keywords that you think would be nice for the cover? Oh, and they wanted me to share covers, sample covers that I liked. And so they do you like covers with people on it, or they have the covers that are words, big words, and art behind it? So I'm like, well, either one, but I really did want a picture. And so this was pretty close to her first draft, and I was just blown away because you hear horror stories of people's covers, and just people having covers that are just so wrong, or don't really align with what the author wanted to convey. So I was super pleased with the cover, and beautiful to have, you know, 3 black women on the cover, and they're gorgeous, and even one with, you know, a little bit of gray. Like, we don't see older women on covers, right? So I thought that was amazing.
Yes, covers are very difficult. You really did hit the jackpot with that one. I was undergoing that right now with the next book cover, and it's like, that's not it. And this is a question of, do you have, you know, how much can you say or not say, you know, in terms of that. So, you know, for your next book, you definitely should hopefully get her back. Say, let's have a relationship. So what is up next for you?
Well, so I'm a teacher, and I'm off for the summer. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself to crank something out. So what I have in mind is not taking us back to this world, but there will be probably a sprinkling of magic, a little, like, okay, maybe that's my thing. Just a little sprinkle of magic, but I want it to be, it's what I'm not going to say too much because it will probably change, but it definitely will center on a relationship. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess, do people have questions of Diane? This wonderful evening. I should pass the mic, or what do we think? Yeah, okay. I mean, I can, all right.
Hi.
Hi.
I had a question about kind of drawing information or inspiration from Zora Neale Hurston. I'm a big Zora Neale Hurston fan. And I know you said that you drew a lot of inspiration from her nonfiction, but one thing I think about a lot in terms of her fiction, specifically with Their Eyes Are Watching God, it's kind of the first time you get a novel that's about, you know, a black woman's interior life, and I feel like it was just very monumental in that way. So I was wondering if you also kind of drew from like themes from her fiction as well, in terms of that.
Yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, my favorite book is Their Eyes Are Watching God, and I didn't do this on purpose, but it's just one of those things that I kind of later found out. So the Loa are those spiritual beings, similar to Catholic saints. And so I had the idea. It didn't quite make it on the page, specifically stated, but one of my characters' favorite Loa was Urzuli Dantor. And I read at some point that Janie was based on Urzuli Dantor. She was a big supporter of women and women's business and finances and taking care of themselves. And so I was like, well, it's kind of feel like that was meant to be, because that, you know, so even just, I feel like that's kind of that magic that happens when you write sometimes. I'm sure you experience the same thing, that things just kind of line up that maybe weren't intended, but maybe just being immersed, it just kind of happened that way. So yes, she's wonderful.
Hi, I love the book. One character that was super influential, but she wasn't present very often, was Villanova, and kind of like how the perspective of her changes as the book progresses. Can you talk a little bit about the research that maybe went into her character and how you decided to change maybe how the viewer may perceive her as the book progresses?
Yes, I loved writing Villanova, just because she's like, to me, she's like the big magical character. Even though we see it with Willow, we see it with Augusta, she's kind of the master, right? She's the one who taught. The book that's referenced, there is a book that's referenced in the book, a spell book. It was her original spell book. And I did want her to kind of be complicated, and for us to think about her in different ways. She was this great sorceress. She had a lot of knowledge and skill. She was, she knew what she was doing because she found Augusta because she knew of Augusta's family history, and she wanted to use that to her advantage for what she wanted to do. Maybe she wasn't the best mother, but she, for where she was in that time period, she was, I think, very innovative, creating her own hustle, her own business, having all these clients that would come in to find her. And just the fact that she lived for so long. When we last see her, she's over 100 years old and had become this grandmother. And so I do kind of think of her as, maybe I wasn't, was that a spoiler? Oops. But I kind of think of her as, sometimes I think about my younger self, and I was kind of a little crazy and out there, but I don't want to be judged by how I behaved then. Maybe I should be judged by how I behaved then, because I have learned and I've grown and I've changed as a person, and maybe if I could go back, I would do things differently. And so that's kind of how I think about Bellanova. Is I think she reflects on her life at some point, and maybe would have done things differently, but maybe not, because she had some losses along the way, and so I think that might have made her think about how she handled things at some point. So, yeah.
Hello. Hi, I'm Britt. Nice to meet you all. My question is about the gift that was supposed to be handed down from Lenora. So, Bellanova went to Augusta, and Augusta was empowered through the spell work. But then she thought Victoria had the gift from Lenora, but she was more of an infant, in my opinion. And then Willow took after her mother, or her grandmother, sorry, and did the spell work. And Nikki was doing the same thing. So who really had the gift?
Yes, that's a great question. Great question. Who really had the gift? I don't even know if I have decided in my own head to answer that. But I do think that. Well, no, I guess I do kind of lean toward one. But I did really what I really want to look at is kind of this, not quite self-fulfilling prophecy, but if somebody calls you something or names that we behave in that way, or if we don't believe that we have something, then we're not going to maybe reach our optimal selves. So that's really what I wanted to investigate with that, with the idea of a gift. If somebody tells you that, I think about like in elementary school, there was a girl in my class and she got moved up. She's gifted, and it's like, oh wow, like okay, that's kind of cool. But if all of us thought that we were gifted, then maybe we would try things that we wouldn't have tried before. So that's more what I really wanted to look at.
Hello.
Hi.
So this is our book club. We read your book for last month's selection.
Oh, good.
So one of the things, it was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
One of the themes that we sort of discussed about the book was it seemed like there was an element of fear, like living in fear, that sort of drove a lot of the decisions that the women made. And I just wanted to know if it was like a conscious decision for you to talk to sort of, because it seems like there's a point in the book where once they started sort of being brave and trying new things and sort of facing that fear, there was a little bit of a turn for them. So was that something that you consciously put in, okay, so we're gonna live our life this way, and not wanting to fall in love because of the curse, but everybody sort of coped with that in a different way. So is that something consciously that you thought about to add into the book?
Yes, definitely. So yes, they all, because of this curse, they had framed their lives in a certain way. So Victoria, her reaction was, let's make our lives as small as possible. Let's close things up, and that'll keep us from getting hurt. Where Willow was like, well, here's the line. I'm going to come right close to the line. I'm not going to cross it, but I'm going to get really, really close to it. And then Augusta, what I felt she did was she said, well, I'm gonna educate them, and if this is real, they will learn, and they don't listen to me, they'll learn things the hard way. And but she didn't share. And so what I think, there's the fear, but I think there's also shame. Even for Victoria, I think she felt ashamed that she had lived her life in this very extreme way, but since she had done it for so long, I think she felt she couldn't like change things. It would be embarrassing to just kind of reverse things and go back like all of a sudden. So definitely glad that you all picked up on that, the fear that they each had, and the way that they tried to live within the curse, but use different strategies to do so. Thank you all for having it as your book club pick.
Hey, so back to the book club. So my sister, the youngest of us, we are sisters, the three of us here. So
I see it. Yes.
She picked it.
I see it.
What we found was, what we picked up in the book was there was quite a bond between the family of women, and obviously it's a beautiful line of women right here in the family. You know, yes. But my question for you is, and we can easily Google this, but what I wanted to hear in your own words were, given the relationship between the women, did you call on any of your history? Because we picked up our own experiences from each character. I mean, I believe Willow, that's Victoria, that's, got a little Nikki mixing between all of us. But, my question for you is, was this real? I mean, were any of these women historical for you? Inspired by anybody?
Great question. And that's a really great question. I think there are little bits and pieces from people that I know or have known. Maybe some relatives on my husband's side influenced a couple of people. But I'm an only child, and I didn't know my grandparents. And so this was a fun way for me to pretend I had sisters and to try to understand, if I had a sister, how would we interact, and what would be our tensions? What would we fight about? If I had a grandmother that I was close to, or an aunt, I do have aunts that I was close to, but how would those relationships be? And especially, so I'm an only child, but I have 4 daughters. And so I would watch them growing up, and they would fight, and they would say like terrible things, and I'd intervene. And again, my youngest, she's like, Mom, this is just what sisters do. You don't get it because you don't have sisters, but this is just, we're fine. This is just how we do things, so relax. So I wanted to see that, but what is gonna, they fight, they disagree, but what's it gonna take where they are like no good? Like what is that point where they damage the relationship really, really to the point where maybe they can't get it back. So, yeah. I see it with the sisters. Very nice.
Okay. Well, let's give her a round of applause. Diane and Piper, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming out. Let me just remind you all again that we have the silent auction here. You can sign up for those giveaways. We also have Brave and Kind Bookstore in the corner. And please take a list of our upcoming events. And now we have a giveaway. Will you mind pulling a name for us?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see who's the lucky one.
Tamra Simpson.
Yay! Congratulations. We have a gift bag for you. Remember, please, we have some refreshments. Feel free to take them so we don't eat them. They're right in the bag. Thank you for coming. Oh, yes. We'll wait for that.
I just wanted to say thank you all so much for coming out. I appreciate it very much. I want to thank you, Piper, for chatting with me here. Big thank you to Gina, who coordinated, along with everybody else, coordinated everything. I'm grateful to the Gwinnett County Library, to the Friends of the Library, to Brave and Kind Books, everybody just very much appreciate it. So enjoy the rest of your evening.
We will have a book signing, so Diane will move to this table here. Anybody that wants their book signed, we're going to put her to work. She's going to sign some books. So thank you.